So, what if the path to heaven wasn't about avoiding suffering, but about choosing it? That's a heavy question, right? Well, today we're diving into that exact idea. We're going to deconstruct a 1981 sermon from Reverend Sun Myung Moon called I Am the Center of the Whole. And believe me, it presents a worldview that's just as provocative today as it was back then. Right out of the gate, the sermon asks a really direct question. Are you drowning? Now, obviously, this isn't just about being in water. It's a metaphor, you know? It's about that feeling of being completely lost and overwhelmed, like the world is just pulling you under. And this idea is built on this really powerful image. He says, imagine all of human history as one single person who's fallen overboard. Humanity is just out there, adrift, thrashing around in this super swift current, totally unable to get back to shore. This one image, being lost at sea, it's the foundation for everything else in the sermon. So in this worldview, the water we're all supposedly drowning in, it's no ordinary ocean. It's what the sermon calls the bitter sea. This is a symbol for the fallen world, a place that's just defined by constant, desperate struggle. This metaphor then creates this incredibly simple but stark definition of heaven and hell. Hell isn't some fiery pit. It's being in the water, struggling just to survive. And heaven? It's being in a boat, maybe just a half-inch above all that chaos, but safe enough to actually enjoy the view and sing a song. The physical distance between them is tiny, but the difference in experience, it's absolutely everything. Okay, so if the world is this chaotic sea, then the path to salvation is pretty straightforward, right? You have to learn to swim. And this is where the sermon pivots from just describing the problem to actually prescribing the solution. The sermon then does something interesting. It frames different religions as different swimming styles. So Buddhism is presented as just floating, kind of passively observing things. Christianity is more active, paddling with a lot of motion. But the Unification Church, well, that's positioned as the ultimate training. It's like learning every single stroke imaginable so you can navigate any kind of water, from a calm lake to the freezing Arctic seas. The implication is pretty clear. There's a hierarchy of preparedness here. And this isn't about some casual swim in a pool. The sermon frames its method as survival training. The whole point isn't just to stay afloat. It's about building the kind of endurance to handle any storm, any hardship the world could possibly throw at you. But to become an expert swimmer in this bitter sea, you apparently need a very specific technique. And this is where the sermon introduces a core theological concept that it calls the secret to spiritual survival. So what is the secret to this survival swimming? The sermon's answer really boils down to this one central principle. And that principle is called indemnity. Okay, think of it this way. Indemnity isn't just random bad things happening to you. It's hardship that you choose to take on. The sermon presents this as a kind of spiritual shortcut. A really difficult path, for sure, but one that purifies you and gets you to heaven much, much faster. This completely reframes how you look at suffering. Normally, we think of it as something to avoid at all costs. But here, indemnity is a tool you're supposed to embrace. It's not a sign you're failing, it's the most direct path to winning. Fundamentally, it's about choosing the harder road on purpose, because that's the road that gets you where you want to go. Now, this whole idea of chosen hardship isn't just about saving yourself. The sermon takes this principle and applies it on a global scale. It's the foundation for a much, much larger mission. So remember that raging river we were talking about? Well, according to this sermon, it's not just a force of nature. There are actual monsters in that water, and they represent very real-world adversaries. And the sermon names the biggest sea monster of all, explicitly. You have to remember, this is 1981. We're at the height of the Cold War, and so the primary antagonist threatening the world is identified as communism. The sermon's response to this threat, it calls for the formation of an independence army of heaven. The idea is to create this disciplined, organized force that is trained to be stronger than its opponents. It even points to real-world conflicts from that time, like in El Salvador, as part of this global struggle. The bottom line is, it argues this army has to be ready for physical confrontation and be able to defend itself. So, this incredibly intense path of training, of fighting, of choosing hardship, it's all building towards one final objective. It's not just about surviving the sea, it's about becoming the very center of it. And this brings us right to the sermon's core definition of leadership. The central person, the true leader, is the one who suffers the most. But here's the key. It's not for themselves. It's for the sake of the whole group. They literally earn their place at the center through sacrifice. Now, to make this point crystal clear, the sermon uses a very specific and highly controversial example from American history. It acknowledges the immense suffering of Black Americans, but it makes a critical distinction. The sermon argues that their suffering was for their own survival, not for the sake of America as a whole. And according to the logic being presented here, that distinction, the purpose of the suffering, is what determines who gets to be the center. So you can really boil the sermon's whole argument down to a 3-step formula for becoming the center. Step 1, suffer for something much larger than yourself. Step 2, willingly pay that price through indemnity. And the result it claims is step 3, you become the true center of the whole. Only he who has endured the fiercest storms can truly appreciate the peaceful sunshine. I mean, that's really the philosophical payoff, isn't it? The idea that true wisdom and leadership aren't just given to you, they are earned, and they are earned only by navigating the storm. It's a perspective, the sermon argues, that people who have only ever known sunshine can never really possess. And that leaves us with the sermon's central question, but now it's framed as a profound challenge. After this whole journey that equates leadership directly with suffering, we're all left to consider, what does it truly mean to bear the burden and the responsibility of being the center?